need some help catching up on your reading goal for the year? I got the video for you. That was cheesy AF. Hi friends and welcome back to my channel. Basically, I'm here with a recommendations video for you where I will be sharing my recommendations for short and quick reads. It was ages ago since I did a recommendations video. I can almost, not really, but almost unironically say that I've never done a recommendation video because I feel like I do them so freaking rarely. I think it's super tricky with recommendations. But I had this idea a while back of sharing some of my favorite short and quick reads because they can be really useful in readathons or for reading challenges or your yearly reading goal. Anything like that. So the books I plan on talking about today are books that I have read really quickly in my experience, and I wanted to mention them in case someone else would be interested. I have divided these books into 3 different categories. We're gonna start with short books, so books I consider to be short, and for this specific category, they are probably, I think they are all less than 200 pages. I might be wrong, I will double check it as I go. You will see the book and think like, oh yeah, that's a short book. Second category is graphic novels. I will talk about some of the graphic novels I have read really quickly. And then third category are quick reads. So books longer than those 200 pages that are in the first category, but in my experience, I read super quickly, like in less than 24 hours. Let's just get into it. Let's attempt to keep this video just as these books short and sweet. Although not all of these books are sweet. We're gonna start with the short book category and we're gonna start with a couple of my favorite books. The first book I need to mention, this is like an obvious pick for this type of video, and that is A Psalm for the Wild-Built by Becky Chambers. I actually listened to this one as an audiobook, so I have not read it physically yet, although I do own it now and very much intend on rereading it in a soon future. This book has less than 150 pages. It's the first book in a duology called The Monk and the Robot series. Now this is a story that is sci-fi, but wholesome and cozy sci-fi, I would say. You've heard about cozy fantasy, you've heard about cozy mysteries. Let me introduce you to cozy sci-fi. It's been a while since I listened to this one now, but in the story we're following, as the series name says, a monk and a robot. So we're following a tea monk named Dex, and then we're also meeting a robot, Moscap. Okay, Moscap. Dex is a tea monk, they are living their tea monk life, and one day this robot, Moscap, enters. Moscap is basically sent from the robots to Earth or to the human realm, world, whatever, to find the answer for the question, what do people need? Dex and Moscap together go on this quest where they start asking people, what do humans need? And obviously, different people, different creatures are gonna give different answers. This is a very lovely, inclusive, representative, wholesome and wonderful story with great representation, such as with non-binary characters. It's wonderful. I'm so excited to reread this and properly annotate it and all of that, but it's a very quick read. If there's one book you're gonna read because of this video, pick this one up. It deserves all the hype it gets. Another favorite of mine is a Fredrik Backman book, and that is And Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer. This book has less than 90 pages and I've read it in one sitting, like within an hour. Perhaps you have seen this book go around because it's quite a popular book for people to make a video about when they read it and see if they will cry or not. This is the story about Noah and his grandfather, and they are sitting on a bench by the town square and they are talking about math and life. The grandfather is sick, he is slowly losing his memory. The book basically deals with that, deals with having to watch someone you care about slowly getting sicker. I definitely cried when I read this, and there are so many beautiful moments in this one as well. If you want to get emotional, I would highly recommend this book. A book I read last year is Assembly by Natasha Brown. What is this about now again? I don't remember. It's basically pitched as someone trying to figure out their life in their 20s. I gave this 3 stars. I wasn't obsessed with it, but it did intrigue me and it did stay with me for a while. It's 100 pages. And the way it's written is very airy and flowy with a lot of paragraphs and a lot of spaces and all of that. So definitely, once again, a quick read. The narrator of Assembly is a black British woman. She is preparing to attend a lavish garden party at her boyfriend's family estate, set deep in the English countryside. At the same time, she is considering the carefully assembled pieces of herself. As the minutes tick down and the future beckons, she can't escape the question, is it time to take it all apart? What did I write in my review of it? It constantly grew. I started this book expecting one thing, but got something completely different. There's a moral in the story that sneaks up on you, and this book tackles topics such as racism and performative activism in very subtle ways. It's an interesting book. I haven't really heard anyone in the booktube community at least talk about it. My friend and I picked this up when we were in Scotland in October last year, and this book was everywhere, like in every single bookshop then. But I don't know if people have actually read it or not. I'm putting this on the list because I feel like it's a bit underrated, not many people know about it. It's definitely an interesting read. It will get you thinking. My next recommendation is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. This is sort of a modern classic that touches upon the topics of spirituality and religion. I'm personally not a spiritual or religious type of person, but I still really connected to this book and its messages. So the story is about an Andalusian shepherd boy who yearns to travel in search of a worldly treasure. His quest will lead him to riches far different and far more satisfying than he ever imagined. Santiago's journey teaches us about the essential wisdom of listening to our hearts and recognizing opportunity and learning to read the omens strewn along life's path, and most importantly, to follow our dreams. From what I remember, it's about this boy who travels from Spain to Egypt because his dream is to see the pyramids. He has this sort of vision or idea that if he goes to Egypt and sees the pyramids, he will have some sort of epiphany or realization or something along those lines. And this story is basically about his path there, how he gets there, the people he meets along the way. And it has a lot of messages and really wonderful quotes about never giving up, following your dreams, cheesy and cliche things like that. I personally really enjoy this. And I do think that many people would enjoy it. It might not connect with everyone, which is fine. I thought this was a really great book. I understand why it's a modern classic. It's also less than 200 pages. It's closer to 180 pages. So once again, a really quick read. The next couple of books I will talk about are still short books or in the short book category, but they are ebooks, or I've read them as ebooks because they are novellas. So if you want to read a book quickly, read a novella. More specifically, read a romance novella. For example, I could recommend the Steminist novella series by Ali Hazelwood. You probably know of Ali Hazelwood, and if you have enjoyed her novel-length books such as The Love Hypothesis, Love on the Brain, and Love Theoretically, I'm 100% convinced that you will enjoy the Steminist novella series as well. From what I know, there are 3 books. We have Under One Roof, Stuck With You, and Below Zero, I think are the 3. I've only read the first one so far, but I read that one within a couple of hours. Female and male characters in STEM fields and very tropey sort of books. Very quick reads, very entertaining. If you want something more spicy, I could recommend Thirst for the Night by Katie Robert. I almost forgot I read this one, but how could I ever? Because this is one of the spiciest books I read. And I remember really enjoying it actually. I believe this is actually more of a prequel to a longer series with novel length books. But I have not continued with the series. I don't really feel a need to. I thought that the prequel in itself was so good. But this is basically a male-female relationship. A spicy book about that. So we're following Meg. She's having a night out. It's her birthday. She meets 2 guys and they go home together. And it's spicy, but there's actually a lot of plot and like character building and things in this one as well. So it is really interesting, and I would recommend it if you want a fun and spicy read. If you want to read a book really quickly, go for the romance novellas. You will have a quick read and you will have a good time. I can promise you that at least. Let's head over to the next category, which is graphic novels. I'm not the most well-versed when it comes to graphic novels, but I definitely read some of the typical standard types of graphic novels. Graphic novels are always a good idea if you want to get through pages quickly. Obviously, there are so many out there, and I'm certain there's something for everyone out there. I also think there's a bunch of manga out there that could be great if you want to have a quicker and shorter read. I've only read a couple, but I will share some of my favorite graphic novels with you. I need to recommend Fangs by Sarah Anderson. I actually timed myself when I read this one, and I read this in 8 minutes. So I promise you, out of all of these books that I'm talking about in this video, this will be the quickest read you will ever have read. Page count is like 100 pages in comic strip panels. So it's a graphic novel, but it's told like a comic almost, and it's about a vampire and a werewolf that are dating. We're getting small snippets from their everyday life about the differences, how it is dating, their courtship, all of that. It's such a great time. It had me smiling like a goof the entire time I read it. I highly recommend this one. Second graphic novel I wanted to recommend is Everyone's an Alien When You're an Alien Too by Jomny Sun. This is a really cute one as well. Once again, it's more in that comic sort of style like Fangs. And once again, this has a lot of really lovely messages about life and character development and similar. So it's about this alien who is sent to study Earth. And the alien has always felt a bit apart from the other aliens, a bit different. But when Jomny gets to Earth, they definitely feel more at home. And they make a lot of friends, like an egg and a tree and a dog and a bee. That wasn't meant to rhyme, but it happened. Through this story of a lost and lonely and confused alien finding friendship, acceptance and love among the animals and planets of Earth, we will all learn how to be a little more human. As you can perhaps see from the title of this book as well, there's a lot of intentional misspellings, spelling errors, grammatical errors and similar. I actually do appreciate it. It definitely did not bother me as much as I expected it to. And the way I interpret it is that it's a way to emphasize how you should not put so much weight and meaning into things. Like, it's not all that serious. It's not that deep, it's not that serious. Don't take things too seriously. Just do, just live, explore, all of that. Don't think too much about the details and the small things. I don't know if that is the intention of it all, but that's the way I interpret it, at least. My final graphic novel recommendation for you all is Lore Olympus. This is the first volume. I have read 3 volumes so far this year, and I really enjoy it. This is like a more modern retelling of Greek mythology, focusing on the relationship between Hades and Persephone. It takes place in a more modern contemporary setting. There are phones, there are skyscrapers, things like that, but we still have a bit of the darkness and the grimness of the original myths, because we all know that the Greek gods weren't saints. They did a bunch of bad things. This series definitely has some triggering topics in it, depending on your triggers, so I'm gonna mention them real quickly. The content warnings are for themes of physical and mental abuse, sexual trauma, and toxic relationships. It took some time for me to get used to the art in it, but once I did, I think it's gorgeous now. I love the colors of it. I love that we get to meet so many characters and explore their stories as well. It's not solely focused on Hades and Persephone. We meet Zeus and Poseidon and Hera, each god or creature or demigod or whatever, or nymph. They have their own issues, they have their own things that they are dealing with, which is also a nice way of getting reminded that even gods are just like us humans. Flawed, confused, make mistakes, all of that. It's a gorgeous book, it's a gorgeous story. It's definitely more of a slow burn type of romance, I would say as well. If you would put like a genre on this, like fantasy romance, but slow burn romance. Highly recommend. I read this in like an afternoon. And also, you can read this series on the Webtoon app, or that's where I read it. A bunch of graphic novels and great webtoons are available on the Webtoon website. For example, Heartstopper as well, another great recommendation for a quick read. So if you haven't checked out Webtoon, check it out. These stories are very much legally available online. You don't need the fancy, expensive physical edition. Just saying. Of course, there are other graphic novels I have enjoyed greatly as well. I can pull them out. They have Saga, Buffy, and Rat Queens. I think I read each one of these in like 30 or 40 minutes maximum. So they are quick reads. Graphic novels, always a solid bet. The final category I wanted to talk about are books that are not necessarily considered to be short, at least not compared to that first category, but I have read them insanely quickly, and I think there's something in the way that they are written with their prose that just makes them for very quick reads. The first I would recommend is actually a series, and that is the Kiss Quotient series by Helen Huang. I have read all 3 of them, but I don't own the third one anymore. Both the Kiss Quotient and the Bride Test I have read for like challenge videos or something where I needed to speed read throughout a week or for a readathon or something. And both of these books I would say I read in like 2 days or within 24 hours. This one is like 320 pages and this one is about 300. It's not that they are necessarily short books, but they are very quick reads, which I think is because of the topics and its tropes and how it's written. And you get a certain flow to the story. This series is a romance series with autistic representation. In this first book, we have a sort of fake dating. It's a trope basically where the main character Stella hires an escort in order for him to teach her about love and relationships and similar, and they develop some feelings for each other throughout this process. In this one we have Kai, who is not interested in love, but his mother really wants him to settle down, so she finds him a bride. I personally really enjoyed both of these books. I gave each of them 4 stars, and insanely quick reads, like super quick reads. I promise you that you will have a good time when you read these ones. You will find a flow with the story, get involved with the characters and the plot, and you will be finished in no time. My final recommendation is another book that's around 300 pages, less than 300 pages, but more than 200, and it's a book I once again read insanely quickly. And that is A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. This is sort of historical fiction, horror-esque, fantastical elements. It's like across all genres. I would say horror, romance, fantasy. Basically, it's about the bride of Dracula. The reason why this was such a quick read for me, I read it within like 2 days once again. Like I read half the book in just one sitting and the second half in another sitting. I think it's the prose. The prose is really beautiful, somewhat lyrical, but it has such a wonderful flow. You don't really realize how quickly you're reading the book until you realize that, oh shit, I'm halfway. I really like this book. It also has some polyamorous relationship representation in it, which we love in this household. So it's about Constanta, who is the bride of Dracula, her life, how she's dealing with everything, how she's dealing with him. Once again, we have some trigger warnings for a really toxic relationship and physical and mental abuse. I adore this book. I thought it was so good. And once again, a super quick read. Those are my recommendations for short and quick books that you will hopefully love, because I really enjoyed all of these. Feel free to share any recommendations that you might have for short and quick reads in the comments. Perhaps you can find some more inspiration there. Please let me know what you thought of this list. Have you read any of these books? What did you think of them? Did you experience them to be quick and short reads, or did you experience the opposite? I would love to know about that actually. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please take care and I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye!
You gotta just go for it. Don't think about what comes after or what came before.